Tanya Kach grew up in Elizabeth, Pennsylvania. In 1996, she was 14 years old and attending middle school. A 37-year-old school security guard named Thomas Hose befriended Tanya. Thomas often took her out of classes to talk to her. Once, he caught her skipping class and forced her to kiss him. As their relationship developed, Thomas persuaded Tanya to run away from home and move in with him. On February 10, 1996, Tanya packed her belongings and left home. Her parents thought she had run away, as this had happened repeatedly before, and only reported her missing a week later due to her history of running away. The police eventually abandoned the search after only a few days, believing the girl had run away voluntarily. 10 years later, in 2006, a 24-year-old woman named Nikki Allen walked into a grocery store and told the clerk that her name was Tanya Kach, and she was being held captive by Thomas, and had been held captive since she was a teenager. The police arrested Thomas. After escaping and returning home, Tanya wrote a book about her experiences called Memoirs of a Cardboard Kid, the story of Tanya Nicole Kach. In the book, she wrote about her ordeal. In the beginning, when Thomas lived with his parents, Tanya was kept in his second-floor bedroom. Thomas went to great lengths to hide Tanya. She was not allowed to leave the bedroom and had to use a bucket for a toilet. Most of the time, she only ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a banana, and a can of soda. After about a week, Thomas would take her to the cold concrete floor of the basement at night to shower with him. She said in an interview, "At first, I was okay. I thought I was in love and felt that my sacrifices were a result of my love for him. Soon, the ordeal began to take its toll." In 2000, Thomas created a new identity for Tanya, Nikki Allen, and introduced her to his parents as his girlfriend who was moving in with him. After this, Tanya was allowed to leave the house occasionally with a strict curfew. 10 years after living with Thomas, Tanya escaped. In 2007, Thomas pleaded guilty to 3 counts of involuntary confinement, forcible sexual intercourse, aggravated indecent assault, statutory sexual assault, interference with child custody, corruption of a minor, and threatening the life of a child. Thomas pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 to 15 years in prison. Stephen Kubacki was a student at Hope College, a small private Christian university on the southeast shore of Lake Michigan. February 1978, Stephen ventured out for several hours of solo cross-country skiing. He would not return home. A day later, when he hadn't returned, he was reported missing. Searchers found his skis and ski poles on the shore of Lake Michigan and tracks on the ice leading towards the lake, but none leaving. When rescuers flew over the area, it was noted that the tracks seemed to end at the edge of the frozen water. There were no signs that the ice had broken anywhere, and no clues as to what happened to Stephen. Later that day, his backpack was found in the same area as his skis. There were no other clues, and it seemed he had dissolved into thin air. Soon after, the search was called off. Then 15 months later, on May 5, 1979, Stephen walked up to his father's house and rang the doorbell. Stephen was surprised to learn he had been reported missing 15 months prior. He told his father he had very poor memory of where he had been. Stephen said he had suddenly woken up 700 miles from where he went missing, lying on the ice in clothes that did not belong to him. He also had a small bag beside him containing a package of maps, none of which belonged to him. He said he felt as if he had recently been running. His father lived 40 miles from where he woke up. Other than that, he did not remember where he had been or what had happened to him for the past 15 months. After his return, he refused to talk to journalists because he had no memory of what happened at all. He refused to talk to a psychotherapist, saying it was unnecessary as he had no psychological problems. In 1983, Stephen earned a master's degree in linguistics, and years later, a PhD in clinical psychology. Many said that his disappearance helped many people find themselves by writing a book and studying psychology. In the 1900s, Dr. William Gordon Bates was a respected ophthalmologist in New York. In August 1902, William wrote a note to his wife saying he had been called out of town to perform some major surgery. He also wrote, "It is pleasant to receive so much money for all of us." He also added to his note that he was in a hurry and would write the details later. The note was strange, as William was already a wealthy man, and his excitement about the money seemed odd. But William did not return home or write as promised in the note. When he did not return, his wife began searching for him. William was a prominent man. His brother and wife sought help from the Masonic Society to try and find him. They circulated his photographs worldwide. Soon, his wife received information that William was working as a medical assistant at a hospital in London after initially being admitted as a patient. Strangely, even though William had a bank account with a lot of money, with which he could live in luxury in London, he was reportedly malnourished. Moreover, when his wife arrived in London, William did not recognize her. However, he accepted her offer to stay with her in a hotel to rest and help him recover his memory. At the hotel, he seemed to recall being called from New York to board a ship and perform surgery on someone with a brain abscess. Hearing this, his wife decided to stay in London to help him regain his memory, but 2 days later, William left the hotel and disappeared again. His wife would never see him again. For the next few years, she tirelessly searched for him in Europe and America until she died in 1907. In 1910, Dr. Kelly, a good friend of William's, was passing through Grand Forks, North Carolina. There she encountered William working in an ophthalmology clinic, which he himself had organized shortly after his second disappearance. However, he still did not remember his past. Kelly convinced him to return to New York and practice together as partners. William was married 3 times, being widowed twice. He married Emma Lillerman, his longtime personal assistant. William never remembered his past or what happened to him after his first disappearance. Natasha Ryan was a 14-year-old girl living with her parents in Rockhampton, Queensland. On August 31, 1998, her mother dropped Natasha off at school. When she returned to pick her up, she was not there, and she was reported missing to the police. Exhaustive and extensive searches were conducted for her. A month before her disappearance, Natasha had run away from home with the help of her 21-year-old boyfriend, Scott Black. However, she was found 2 days later. Scott was fined $1,000 in November 1999, where he pleaded guilty to willful obstruction of the police. He was asked if he knew anything about the second disappearance, to which he replied that he did not know Natasha's whereabouts. 8 months after Natasha's disappearance, another girl named Kira Stanford went missing while walking from home to school. Following several leads, the police arrested Leonard John Fraser. During Natasha's disappearance, several women went missing. The police suddenly began considering the possibility that Leonard was a serial killer and might have also killed Natasha. Hopes of finding her dwindled, and she was soon officially declared dead, believed to be a victim of Leonard. In 1999, Leonard confessed to 5 murders, including the murders of Kira and Natasha. This confession was believed to be made as part of a deal with the police to avoid general population in prison, given the prisoners' cloudy opinion of rapists and child murderers. Then, on April 10, 2003, while Leonard's trial was ongoing in the Supreme Court, the police searched his house. There they found Natasha Ryan alive, hiding in a closet. It turned out that Natasha had faked her disappearance and had been living with her boyfriend Scott since her disappearance on August 31st. During her first year in hiding, Natasha had no contact with the outside world. She rarely left her boyfriend's house and stayed inside with the lights off and curtains drawn. Whenever people came over, she hid in the closet. Over those 4 years, they moved several times under the cover of night from one house to another. She had been living in Rockhampton for 6 months before she was found in 2003. 2 days later, Natasha attended her own murder trial and told the court she had never met Leonard. Leonard never knew the witness who claimed to have seen her with him before she went missing. The jury found Leonard guilty of 3 murders, and on June 13, 2003, he was sentenced to 3 life sentences. He died in prison on January 1, 2007. In later interviews, Natasha said that by the time she wanted to reconnect with her mother, it was too late. The lie had become too big, so she stayed hidden. In 2005, Scott pleaded guilty to lying to investigators about not knowing her whereabouts. The district court sentenced Scott to 3 years in prison for perjury. A year later, Natasha was found guilty of exciting a false police investigation and fined $10,000. John Darwin. On March 21, 2002, John Darwin, a teacher and former prison officer, went canoeing in the North Sea. He was last seen paddling his canoe off Seaton Carew. When he did not return home, his wife Anne Darwin reported him missing. A massive search began involving the police and Coast Guard, covering the entire route from Seaton Carew to Staithes. The next day, his double paddle was found in the sea. However, no trace of John could be found. The search was later called off, and John was presumed dead. Several months later, his broken canoe was to appear in North Gare, near an area known in the district as the Blue Lagoon. In April 2003, Darwin was officially declared dead. His death certificate stated that after going out to sea, he likely encountered difficulties resulting in his death. With the help of the death certificate, the grieving widow Anne was able to claim her husband's inheritance: a life insurance policy worth £25,000, a teacher's pension worth £25,000, a prison officer's pension worth £58,000, as well as a £4,000 payout from the Department for Work and Pensions, and another £137,000 from a mortgage insurance policy. The total amount was £249,000. Darwin was considered dead until 2007. On December 1, 2007, a man identifying himself as John Darwin walked into a London police station. He told investigators he remembered nothing about the past few years. He could state his name, date of birth, and personal details, but did not remember where he had been. Anne said in an interview that she was overjoyed that her husband was alive. However, the police were investigating his disappearance after receiving a tip that John might be alive and living in Panama. Soon, Darwin's story was exposed as a lie when photos surfaced online in which he was posing with his wife in 2006, proving he had been alive all along. It turned out that John had faked his death to avoid significant debts from his real estate and stock business. Incredibly, Anne had helped him manage this. He and his wife planned his death to claim insurance money to pay off their debts. According to John, after faking his disappearance, he moved to the Lake District and regularly called Anne to check if the coast was clear for his return home. A few weeks later, he returned to his home and settled in the neighboring house, which belonged to the Darwin family. During the day, he lived in the neighboring apartment, and at night, he sneaked into the house through a secret door hidden behind a closet. The couple lied to family, church workers, even their own sons, who did not know he was alive. Meanwhile, his wife pretended to friends, neighbors, and their 2 sons that her husband had died. Over time, John became more confident and ventured out, wearing a cap and regularly limping to disguise his identity. One day, one of the tenants recognized him and asked, "Aren't you supposed to be dead?" John begged him not to say anything, and he got away with it. In 2006, Darwin devised a new plan to move to Panama to live more openly. He requested a birth certificate in the name of a dead boy who was born around the same time as him. Using the birth certificate, he applied for a passport in the name of the deceased child, John Jones. His wife told their sons that she needed to start a new life and would move to Panama. The couple flew to Panama on July 14, 2006, where they were photographed by a Panamanian real estate agent, and the resulting photograph was posted on the internet. They had planned everything in advance to buy a house there. However, after a change in Panamanian visa law, John told his wife that their identities would need to be confirmed by British authorities, and this time his pseudonym would not work. Darwin then decided to return home and pretend to suffer from amnesia. However, by that time, the police were already investigating his disappearance after one of Anne's colleagues overheard a phone conversation between the couple. Anne was convicted on 6 counts of fraud and 9 counts of money laundering and was imprisoned for 6.5 years. She served 3.5 years. Darwin pleaded guilty to fraud and also to falsely obtaining a passport and was imprisoned for 6 years and 3 months. He was released in 2011 after serving half of his sentence. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourselves.